going to start with the land acknowledgement. Welcome to everyone that's here. We're pleased to be here today on the traditional territory of Treaty 6 in the Métis homeland. We acknowledge all those who share a deep connection with this land. The City of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and cultures of all of Canada's First Peoples, whether they be of First Nation, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich Canada's vibrant communities. We are all treaty people. The peace treaties bind us all. Next on our agenda, I have two proclamations to make. The first, excuse me, this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, month of October. Whereas breast cancer is the most common cancer in Canadian women, and it's a serious disease that will affect 27,400 women, 240 men and their families this year. And whereas it is of great importance that money is raised for funding breast cancer research projects and community programs, and whereas screening and early detection can reduce breast cancer mortality rates, and whereas the Canadian Breast Cancer Foundation strives to be an effective advocate, a trusted leader, a respectful partner, and a resourceful catalyst in creating a future without breast cancer, now therefore be it resolved that I, Deputy Mayor Kathy Barnhart, do hereby proclaim October 2022 as Breast Cancer Awareness Month. The second proclamation, Probus Month, the month of October. Whereas it is recognized that the Leduc Region Probus Club has a vital purpose, that being to stimulate thought, learning, interest, and participation in activities at a time in life when it is easy to become complacent and self-centered. And whereas the Leduc Region Probus Club is made up of retired or semi-retired professional, business, or like responsible persons from the local community. And whereas the Leduc Region Probus Club provides ongoing Zoom or meeting activities to those residents from the region who in retirement appreciate and value opportunities to meet others in similar circumstances and of a similar level of interest. And whereas the City of Beaumont encourages and supports the development of fraternal associations, service clubs, and other voluntary associations, now therefore be it resolved that I, Deputy Mayor Kathy Barnhart, do hereby proclaim October 2022 as Probus Month in the City of Beaumont, Alberta, dated this 11th day of October 2022. Okay, moving on then to the adoption of the agenda. Is there a member of council that's willing to make a motion to approve the agenda? Councillor Miller.
Sure, I move that the October 11th, 2022 council agenda be adopted as presented.
Thank you. And now, please vote, members of council. Councillor Van Nieuwkerk and Mayor Daniluk, if you can hear me, would you please state your votes?
In favor.
In favor.
Thank you both. So that motion is passed unanimously. Thank you. All right. So moving on next to the consent agenda. So in our agenda, we have a number of items that have been starred as perhaps being approved in one motion. And so I'm just going to mention them by number and name, and then see if there's a member of council, if all of council is okay with making a motion on that. So item 5A, regular council meeting minutes, September 27th, 2022. Item 6A, section 347, request to waive property tax late payment fees, roll number 001987. Item 6B, also section 347, request to waive property tax late payment fees, roll number 008692. And 7A, the City of Beaumont Municipal Office Bylaw 102322. So members of council and Councillor Van Nieuwkerk and Mayor Daniluk, is there any changes to that consent agenda?
Madam Chair, I have no changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Not hearing any, then I will ask for a member of council to make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Councillor McCook.
I move that council approve the consent agenda without debate.
Thank you very much. And now would members of council please vote on that? Mayor Daniluk,
In favor, Madam Chair?
Councillor Van Newkirk,
In favor, thank you.
thank you all. And so that passes unanimously. Okay, there's a lot of buttons to push up here, people. We're moving along here. Okay, so that takes us now to the open forum. And I understand that we have one group that wishes to present, so would you please come forward? State your name and then proceed right away to your presentation. And do you have something that's going up on the screen as well or not? I know we were handed something, but
Yes, we do. I think,
so we'll wait until it
Madam
gets up.
Clerk
Mhm.
will have it.
And then we can start your clock. We don't want to use your time.
Take away
up with
2
the
seconds from me,
technology. Okay. There we go. All right, so please begin. Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, council members. Madam Chair, thank you for the opportunity. Administration, CEO, everyone that's here today. I worked with you one way or the other in certain capacities. A little bit about my background. Former vet, served in Canadian Forces, deployed overseas, served in reserves, municipal constable, fireman, former volunteer, and I made the calendar, Renee. So that was a long time ago, but the reason I share that background with you is that I've been working with people at a very intimate level. I've seen the brutality and what human beings are able to do when it comes down to suffering and cause pain and harm to each other. When I was deployed overseas, I've seen a lot of people who are struggling, and my family came to Canada and we came from very humble beginnings. So, excuse me, I'm going to move this over. So with that in mind, like we were very fortunate enough to come to Canada, and we're a third generation now, and we've been blessed to have the life that we have. So a little background with Beaumont, we actually started a Fresh Max Express Market, and we've been donating food, hampers, goods, everything for almost a year, unofficially. We found out there was an initiative that was being launched for a very long time, and we supported them throughout. And to this day, I welcome everyone that wants to support with open arms. This is not my initiative. This is a Beaumont initiative. What we want to talk about is a Beaumont food bank. There's a huge demand for families that are struggling in our backyard, in our neighborhood. So if you switch to the slide number 2, my time is 3 minutes. Okay, so I'll try to stay on top. So these are the examples of all the texts that I could pull up real quick, because I've only given 5 minutes to do this. And people are asking for help. We have single women, we have young professionals, we have housewives, women with parents have passed away. We've got husbands that have died. They've left with no hope. And last Thanksgiving weekend, between our team, we've delivered over 30 to 40, personalized phone calls, to each individual person, individually, collectively, sorry. But individually, I've gone out to door to door, deliver products, deliver packages to people in need. Now, a lot of people have reached out and said there are other services, Edmonton Food Bank, other Leduc Food Bank. You know what? I got nothing against them. They're doing great work, but our community needs more support and help. I've got congregation members from different faith groups, Hindu Society of Alberta, for Beaumont, they're present today. I got business community members that are present today. We've funded this wholeheartedly, 100% privately. There's no public funding to us. So the goal for today is to basically bring a case in front of the council to saying, well, there's a need for this. 2, the council should pay attention to this type of initiative. And 3, the proof is in the pudding. People are reaching out. And I've got my personal phone on all over social media, reaching out to families and asking them if you need any help. Again, I don't need to do this. I'm building a real estate development project here, doing 30-unit apartment, 10,000 square feet, multi-million-dollar projects. Family's been blessed with a lot of things. Our CFO, Cranny's a lawyer. My dad's present. He's a lawyer in Edmonton. We don't need to do this. We need to do this because we really genuinely care. We feel we're blessed to have this. And again, that being said, it's not to impress you in any way who I am. It's about demonstrating the fact that our community needs this type of a service. I know there's a program in place for grants and there's a sequence that we need to follow if we need to pursue that. But I just want the council to understand that we are human first, like we're human beings that are really affected by when people walked in, we lost our literally a shirt in fresh max when COVID hit us. We lost a lot of resources, businesses, employees, and we really had nothing left to give other than to say, well, throwing this grocery to the waste or you start giving to people that need it. Does that make sense? So all I'm saying to you is in 5 minutes, I'm trying to cramp up this complex topic and I got 32 seconds left, right? So
We were so grateful for the overwhelming support for the volunteers. We actually didn't expect the amount of response from Beaumont itself. It was overwhelming to see how everyone wanted to come on board and emotional messages. I could read you one anonymously. It says, "Good morning, Elle. I would like to pre-register for assistance. We lived in Beaumont. My husband passed away from a sudden heart attack. I was a stay-at-home mom, and it's been hard getting out and figuring out how I'm going to support us."
That's our signal.
Well,
That's our signal.
thank you very much. The point is, this is a complex issue. I appreciate your time. People behind me, they put their effort, money, and resources, and whether you support it or, I hope you support it, we're going to continue to support this initiative. So please, give some strong consideration, guys and gals. And we'll leave it at that. If you have any questions, I welcome those opportunities.
Thank you very much, both of you, for coming forward. And I know it takes a lot to do that, and I appreciate the time you're putting into this effort. What we generally do at open forum is ask if any of the councillors have any questions or comments, and then we would proceed, and then we take it as information. Basically, that's how the open forum works. So that's, I will just see. Does anyone have any questions at this point? Councillor Runkoff-Swain.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Barnhart, and thanks for the presentation and for all the support, a lot of time and energy and effort, not only to the community, but into this as well. I guess the question I have for you, so we had a similar initiative come to us, which you're aware of, volunteer group. We entered into a formal agreement with them. I'm just curious on your thoughts about that and how your ask here is different from that.
Well, I welcome them with open arms. Anybody that wants to improve our community, I welcome them. The goal is what? The goal is to help the people that need the help. It's not about me. And I've said that before. I could sit there comfortably on the chair. All of these people could sit in their own homes. They don't need to get involved, right? Our focus is very simple, help the people. We've been filling the Karma Pantry before it was a Karma Pantry, unofficially, through our own resources, giving away through our Fresh Max initiative, giving away food. I've got a half a store full of groceries that I could throw it out. Why would I do that? Right? So we are happy to work with any of the groups, whether it's Leduc or Edmonton, but I think the problem is the people who don't know people, they're very afraid of connecting with them. For example, it's very courageous for someone to pick up a phone and call, right? It's very difficult. And when they call me on my phone, it's not like, hey, they know Al because he lives here. He's in town. He could pick up a phone and say, hey, I need something. I get it out to them. So to answer your question, sir, absolutely. I'll work with anyone that wants to come on board. We are willing to donate space. We donated the space to them. Even then, the group was having some challenges, and I don't want to get into that, but our goal is not to point fingers, is to improve the actual issue on the ground.
And furthermore, with all due respect, sir, that group is particularly focused on thrift. Our focus is on food, and there's a differentiating element in the model itself in terms of the assistance that we provide. Secondly, on top of that, our board is entirely volunteers. There's no salary that anyone is taking. It's entirely a charitable initiative. If you look at many other boards, such as Leduc Food Bank, Edmonton Food Bank, their executive directors are paid wholesomely, and that's not part of our mission to create any salaries. We still want to just give back and give back with a charitable purpose.
No, I appreciate that. The challenge for me is from the presentation here, you're looking for $100,000. That's what I see in front of me here.
5 minutes is not enough time for me to
If
quantify
I-
that.
If I may, I
Madam?
know, I appreciate where you're going, Councillor Swain, but I think at this point, we need report to come back to us. We're going to talk about that particular motion. And this is basically for information at this point.
Yeah, no, I was just trying to understand the difference between the agreement that we had with the other group versus this group here.
Absolutely, and
I-
that's what we'd need the administration to bring back a report on it, if that's where you're headed with this, but at this point, we don't have enough information.
Sure.
That's up to you, if you want to do anything further with that.
No, I was trying to get an understanding the difference between them and I think I heard.
I can comment on it, real quick. The monies that are needed are for people of Alberta, people of Beaumont, right? And what you have to look at, 150 families that are calling and asking for help. Sometimes we need to have those resources. Not everybody just wants to eat canned food, right? We need to have a kitchen that prepares fresh meals. We need to have some people that are able to deliver the resources to people. And there's some improvement for storage of, frozen goods and so on. That's where some of that money could flow. Again, that's a request. And we're open to feedback. Council has lots of experience and we can go from there.
And to add to that, our operation is already functioning. We're not coming to you saying, speculating. These are 4 possible locations. Our location's already running. And we already have put in, I don't want to mention a dollar amount, but we put in a substantial fund to have this operation going on our own accord. And we just want to involve the council, involve the community so we can only do so much. We want to take it to the next level. And we need your support for that, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. I don't see any other requests to speak. I want to thank you for coming forward, and we'll see where this goes. Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks everybody attending today as well.
Okay. CAO Shorts, I realized that I forgot to do what I said I was going to do and allow you a few minutes to introduce a new staff person. Would you like to do that now? Is that appropriate?
Certainly. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, member of public, member of council. I'd like to take a second to introduce Jennifer Niesink. For those on the video, you can't see her. Jennifer is our new Director of Economic Development. And this is her 2nd week. So she did come back for the 2nd week. So that's better than the last 4. Kidding aside, Jennifer's got just a great combination of education and experience, including private and public, knows municipalities extremely well. And you're going to see she's a go-getter and just, I think, going to be a great fit for the city of Beaumont. So welcome, Jennifer, and thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, and welcome aboard. And I'm sure you're going to have lots of fun with that portfolio. All right. The next item on our agenda is property tax relief, item 6C. Hope I haven't skipped over anything else I wasn't supposed to skip over. Oh, Maureen, you have to speak? Where'd she go?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to introduce the item.
Excuse me?
I said, thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to introduce this item.
Oh, that's right. That's why your name is on there. Okay, sorry about that.
No worries.
Please proceed.
Yeah, it's not every day that I get the opportunity to speak to council about taxes, so I'm going to relish this opportunity. As council will recall, back in May, council directed administration to prepare a policy on property tax relief requests. Many municipalities in Alberta, including Edmonton, St. Albert, Red Deer, and Strathcona County, have council policies pertaining to these types of requests. Typically, the policy provides criteria for granting the request and explains the process for making such a request for anyone who's interested. So that would be for residents. The policy is also, of course, a guide for council itself when it considers these requests. The proposed policy is available in attachment 1 of the report before you. This policy explains the various legislative details and the principles that council would typically have in mind when they're considering applications for this type of property tax relief. The guidelines are set out in section 4 of the policy, and there are 3 general situations where council would generally consider exercising its discretion to exempt property tax. But these guidelines do not prevent council from exercising its discretion. That is prescribed through the Municipal Government Act. So again, council makes all the final decisions, but these are just guidelines. Section 5 of the policy is the application process, and that's probably what administration gets the most questions about. And then there are the typical definitions and purpose statements in the policy as well. If council is satisfied with the policy as drafted, it can be approved today. However, if there are desired changes to the policy or questions, we're very happy to take those questions, and it's always possible to make amendments to the policy and bring it forward at a later date if that's council's will. So that is a very quick presentation, and I will open it up to questions, which I will likely direct to our Director of Finance.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that presentation. Are there any members of council who would like to ask any questions? Councillor McCook.
Thank you. Thank you for the policy as well. Just to clarify, we've basically been following this kind of process. This just formalizes it.
Thank you, Councillor McCook. That's an excellent question. Through Madam Chair, yes, this policy codifies what has been the current practice for our municipality, but it just puts a little more structure around it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. That was essentially my question as well. Mayor Daniluk or Councillor Van Newkirk, do you have any questions or comments on this? Mayor, you're good?
No, Madam Chair, thank you. I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Thank you. I do not see any other questions showing up. So therefore, would a member of council be willing to move the recommendation that we have? And it's on the screen. Councillor Tessier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move that Council Policy C50 Property Tax Relief as set out in Attachment 1 of the October 11th, 2022 report be approved.
Thank you very much. I'll start the voting. Councillor Van Newkirk, how do you vote?
In favor.
Mayor Daniluk?
In favor, Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you. And I will declare that vote is passed unanimously. Thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda is the options for the community standards bylaw. Here comes our next presenter. I'm going to find it in a minute here. Jay, Mr. Melvin, Chief Melvin. You have the floor. His mic is on? How'd that happen? Sorry about that.
Okay, well, good evening, Madam Chair and members of council. Once again, Chief Melvin to bring back some of the, I guess, questions answers to some of your questions from the last time we spoke, reference to community standards bylaw. We've captured the questions, hopefully that in an appropriate way that we can provide you the answers that you were looking for when it comes to the community standards bylaw. Just to set the stage a little bit, this is just to give you feedback on the wording that you would like to see changed in the current draft. This is not at any time this evening to be voting for the bylaw. This is just to get the wording right so that we can get it into the final draft form so we can bring it to first reading so you can have a look at the complete document. So if you have questions on some of our options, hopefully I can try to answer them. If not, I'll ask Ms. Bijaya to comment if need be. And then we'll try to go through these one by one, slide by slide, and hopefully that will answer some of your questions that you may have pertaining to our last meeting. We wanted to get this back in front of you so it was fresh in your minds on the bylaw, so we weren't spending a lot of your important time trying to recount what was said or what was debated at that time. So starting off, we did have a question. Oh, there we go. So the first question that was proposed was on cigarette litter. We do have some options here. Our recommendation is to remain with the current language. The rationale behind, obviously, it was best practice and to leave it as general as possible to allow for flexibility for our community peace officers. And also the matter can be addressed under the Environmental Protection Act, which provides a fine for throwing items out of your vehicle. So rather than being too specific when it came to that cigarette litter, we recommended that we keep it as general as possible. Just makes it a little bit more flexible for the officer to use proper judgment. Any questions on that one? I guess I can probably, just for the sake of flow, I'll go through all of them, and then if there's questions, we can easily come back and we can bring back the slide for that information. Next one on panhandling, two recommendations, either to keep the definition of panhandling and the fine within the bylaw, or we can remove it. We recommend retaining the wording as currently proposed. Removing the fine does not provide any enforcement mechanism for the officers to rely on. So our community peace officers really have no ability to deal with panhandling if we remove it out of the bylaw. Our council has recommended not including wording about issuing a warning. Once again, this should be left to the officer's discretion on what they see based on what the situation is that they're dealing with. So sometimes, as you possibly can be aware of, somebody may call in something and it could be completely different to what actually is happening out there. So once again, it is important to remember that officers have discretion not to enforce a bylaw as long as that discretion is exercised in good faith. So automotive fluids, we did make an amendment to this one, which was including but not limited to the engine oil and brake fluid and antifreeze. So we've included that, so it's just not, it opens up the spectrum a little bit more for the officers, and there shouldn't be any issues with them being able to enforce it, being as detailed it is for automotive fluids. Repair motor vehicles, we did do as requested. There was a concern over what if somebody never had a garage. So we did remove that piece from the bylaw, and the remaining things are still covered. When it comes to those types of work, if there's any issues, the officer still can go there. It can possibly, if there's unsightly property, it could be something under land use bylaw. So there is a variety of things there. So removing that garage function, I don't think that is going to inhibit or I guess prevent anybody from having too much of a concern. It's quite common for people to tinker on their vehicles every now and then, even if they don't have a garage. So we shouldn't be that tight of a restriction on it. Construction waste. So construction waste fines can be increased to double the current specified amount. The big thing that we've used since I've been here is really the land use bylaw and stop orders. When you can stop the whole project, that costs the contractor a lot more money than issuing a construction waste fine through a community standards bylaw. Not saying that we can't do it. It just gives the officer a little bit more leniency if it's something that's very small that he can do right away, or if it's something that we need to get a stop order for. If it's something significant that we've had earlier this year, the stop order would be the way to go. So we can increase to double the current specified amount in the fine schedule at the back of the document, if that's council's wishes. But big thing to notice that the stop work order is really the big piece that our officers go out with planning and development and issue that under the land use bylaw rather than the community standards bylaw. Cannabis. So we've added in some provisions that will control security and access to the property. and amendments to the land use bylaw may be made to create a new class, giving the city the ability to impose restrictions on that use. Probably the target bylaw where you want to put this information in there. We do recommend to council that administration bring back amendments to the land use bylaw to address this matter. So this will be done at a later date through planning and development. And amendments to that land use bylaw may not necessarily prevent this type of action from occurring in residential areas. However, it would allow the city to impose some several conditions on a development permit for use. So we'd be able to address it that way, trying to reduce the impact of development on neighboring properties. So it's a situation that's still very fluid when it comes to the legal piece around cannabis and in the residential area. Consumption, as we determined that it would be not good for our officers to do taste tests on gummy bears. We decided to remove that section entirely and prohibit the consumption of edible. This seems to make a lot of logical sense and very hard to detect or enforce. Liquor consumption in public parks. Our recommendation is to leave the current language in, but also bring back to council a trial program for next year, looking at what other municipalities have done, trying to pick out all the good that they've done and bring back something to council at that point for some type of trial. Our recommendation is that we don't want to hold up the community standards bylaw, trying to dig in to what this program would look like. So that would be our recommendation for liquor consumption. Noise control, house party noise, retain the current language. We could also, or we could put in revisions that specifically state that excessive noise in residential areas, what everybody's used to, that 11 to 7 type of time frame. And our recommendation is to stay with that current language with community standards, industry's best practices, the allowed wider discretion, so the enforcement can actually be targeted when necessary. So if it's something's having excessive at 9 o'clock, they can go enforce it at 9 o'clock instead of waiting 2 hours and then enforcing it. So it gives our officers, once again, that ability to use proper judgment depending on what is actually happening for whatever service call goes out to them. So. Barking dogs, recommendation is to retain the current language, and this will be addressed in the animal control bylaw, which is after the traffic safety, which will be the next one we'll be presenting to get that one updated, and that is scheduled for 2023. Excessive noise can still be fined in accordance with the community standards bylaw for people allowing excess noise, but typically it's going to be addressed in the animal control bylaw. Noise from vehicles, our recommendation is to retain the current language. We do not want to address it in the community standards bylaw. We believe that this issue is going to be addressed in the traffic safety bylaw, which is currently out for public consultation, and we'll be back in front of council next month. We wanted to keep the noise provisions fairly general, very similar to the house party noise item. And of course, mandatory review. We can include the language for a mandatory 2-year review to be brought to council, as we're combining a whole bunch of bylaws into one and enhancing it. We need to get a pulse from the public on are certain, based on our calls for service, are certain pieces of the community standards bylaw too strict? Are they too lenient? We may need to tighten up in one area, but we don't know until we actually get one. And then set the benchmark from there. So the plan would be you would see that in the first reading for a mandatory 2-year review to be brought to council, bringing you all that data to say this is how many calls we've had or concerns or whatever it may be. And there may be new areas that may not even come to light as of yet. So that's all that I have. That hopefully captures the questions that was brought forward to us last time at our committee of the whole, and I'm open to hear any questions or comments that you have on the update for the community standards bylaw.
Thank you, Chief Melville. Are there members of council that have questions? Councillor Monkoff Swain, first up.
Yeah, maybe a couple of comments. First, just generally appreciate you guys heard everything we talked about and summed it all up really, really well. I understand the logic through there, but disappointed around the panhandling piece, but I certainly don't have a better answer than what you came up with, so good for me. The piece for me though around the liquor coming back in our public parks, I just asked that. It just said public parks in there. You know, the feedback that I've got from folks is if we're going to do it, let's see if we can look at Four Seasons. That's where most people would like. I don't want to test it in some obscure park in the back corner of Beaumont. That would just be my only ask. I don't think it needs to change in here, but just the feedback as we start to go through that. So all in all those made all the sense in the world, and you guys definitely listened to all the feedback we had. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Monkoff Swain. Mayor Daniluk, or yes, Mayor Daniluk, I see your hand is up now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I echo Sam's comments on the work and coming back with everything we asked for, Chief Melvin. Much appreciated. I will just go back to one on the noise bylaw. I understand your suggestion on the rationale to provide flexibility. For example, if a party, and these are mostly house party issues, and when it comes to noise bylaw, that tends to be a house party issue. If it's very noisy at 9 o'clock on a Friday, a bylaw officer could then go in there and say, listen, it's too loud, guys, and only 9 o'clock, but it's way too loud. Calm it down. Whereas I would think she's possibly that most people are pretty flexible when it comes to daytime parties and early evenings. They kind of know it's 9 o'clock on a Friday night. It's not too late. Let's not be too carried away with the noise. But 11 o'clock is kind of the place where if it is too loud, a resident can say, listen, it's past 11 o'clock. It's too loud. They can call bylaw, and then the bylaw has the authority to do what they think they need to do in their discretion. So I understand your logic for saying more flexibility in case a party is very loud earlier than 11 o'clock in my example, but I'm kind of leaning towards 11 to 7. I'm more comfortable with having a set time that the bylaw people and the general public can agree that that's a reasonable time to say, okay, it's been a great party, but a little too loud in the backyard, guys, and the house, you got to shut it down or knock it down in volume, as opposed to a possible 9 o'clock on the obscure one or two nights. So I would suggest leaning towards the 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. If I had to vote on it today, I would vote for 11 p.m. to 7 p.m. I do appreciate the logic on the suggestion, but I'm leaning towards a more definitive time frame. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm looking to see if there's other members of council want to speak to this issue of the time of the noise bylaw. No. Councillor Van Newkirk, are your hand raised for that issue?
Yeah, you betcha. Just looking for a clarification on that time, actually. Chief Melvin, on what is the ability of bylaw to respond at 11? I guess when does bylaw hand the reins over to the RCMP in these house noise situations like this?
Through Madam Chair to Councillor Van Newkirk. Obviously, our staffing levels would dictate when officers would be able to enforce that. In the event that there's no officer on, or if there was a call for service that went out and it was related to excessive noise, the call would then be transferred to the RCMP. Whether that's at 9 o'clock at night or 2 in the morning, if we don't have any officers on, the call would get moved to the RCMP.
Yeah, and I guess specifically what is, if you could remind me the hours for our staff, the bylaw staff, when do they go to? What's their actual hours right now?
Presently, it's a rotating shift. So depending on what's happening, normally our summertime hours would extend later in the evenings due to the daylight. But as we start to scale back and things with our staffing, the schedule really fluctuates. But we could have staff on to 10 o'clock at night. We could have staff on to 11 o'clock at night. Unfortunately, the schedule is fairly fluid with our staffing presently. So unfortunately, it doesn't give you a proper answer other than if there's a call for service that comes in and we have no staff members on, it's going to go to the RCMP.
Yeah, I was just asking to see if there might be alignment with staffing to the timing the mayor was talking about. That's all I was kind of thinking about there. And I know that's probably not a best practice to line a bylaw up with when people work. I was just trying to make that connection there. So thank you.
Thank you. And I'm with the mayor on this one in terms of the time being specified in the bylaw, but I'm a little unclear as to whether we're going to vote on one item here at this point in time. So I'm just looking to clerks and others. Do you want us to take that one out and vote upon it, or should we wait until the end? Oh, I guess I have to give you the right to speak. There you go.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If council wishes to vote on each individual item that they want to change, then we can do a separate vote for each one.
Okay, it's hard for me to gauge other than taking a vote at this point. So, okay, Councillor McCook would like to speak on this item.
Thank you. So if we went with the 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., does that mean that people could have whatever type of noise prior to 11?
Through Madam Chair to Councillor McCook, obviously the really powers of a community peace officer is upon its bylaws that it can enforce. If it's using excessive force excessive noise that the bylaw officer deems that is outside the parameters within the community standards bylaw, and there's no other bylaw to control that, the officer does have the ability to call the RCMP and provide some assistance on that point. At the end of the day, the really point is to connect with the resident to say, you know what, we received several complaints. Everybody wants to have a good time, but you know, out of respect for your neighbors, can you just keep the noise down? Most of the time that works. Some of the times it doesn't. And that's when I believe that the RCMP should be called in to enforce that. At the end of the day, we're just hoping by having a community standards bylaw that people can now look at and go, okay, this is kind of the benchmark for the community. We have some guidelines now to follow. At the end of the day, let's all try to be good neighbors. Everybody still wants to have a good time at their own residence. Sometimes you just got to calm her down a bit. That's all. So.
Okay. So just so I'm clear, they technically could be loud if we have an 11 to 7 strict time frame prior to 11. And if there are issues with neighbors, we would then call in the RCMP.
Absolutely. And we've had some festivals that are loud in the afternoons and evenings. You don't want to. And once again, when it comes to noise, it's very subjective. What I think may be loud may be different for others. And so you need to have the bylaw officer out there and the community peace officer to really communicate with the public, see what the issue is, and see what they can do to try to maybe solve some of the issues that are out there. But at the end of the day, we're not going to be able to fix every issue that's out there. Currently, if council's wishes is to go with 11 to 7, then we don't have any issues. We don't have any issues with that. If that's what we will enforce, and we'll go with that route. But like I said, we prefer to keep it a little bit more general, just in case things get a little out of control. But we do have other measures to deal with that. And I'm not opposed to 11 to 7. That seems to be fairly common knowledge for most folks that are homeowners and residents. I've known for 30 years being in Alberta. It seems 11 to 7 was always the thing, and I always abided by that 11 to 7 rules. So.
And do you foresee any issues if we leave it more open with potentially, 9 o'clock, someone says too loud, and the person, having the party or the festival is like, no, I feel like it's reasonable. And then it's like you said, very.
I think at the end of the day, this is really going to give us a benchmark. And when we do the review, we'll be able to pull the statistics and go, we had 500 calls on this 11 to 7 rule. We need to either explore it or do something else to try to address the public's concern. I think right now, we don't know what we don't know until we get the community standards bylaw in the public's hands and really kind of watch and see where the data's coming in at. So one way or the other, we'll pick one and we'll trial it. And if it doesn't work, then we'll reassess and react.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Miller, are you on this issue or? Okay, I'm just going to go to Mayor Daniluk. I think he'd like to add some points here. Go ahead, Mayor Daniluk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wish to apologize. I wasn't expecting my comment to start a bit of a debate this evening. I was just making an observation that if we had to vote, I would prefer to be 11 to 7. So I am prepared to accept the recommendation tonight. And in 2 weeks' time, when it comes back for approval, I may, after more thought, consider doing an amendment to 11 to 7 in 2 weeks' time when we actually debate the actual bylaw. So I'd apologize if we took us down a debate path. I wasn't intending to do that. So I'm prepared to move that forward to 2 weeks' time. If we are prepared to move forward on recommendations. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mayor. I was leading in the direction of we would actually give a choice to Chief Melvin so that he could go ahead and draft the bylaw one way or the other, rather than having to do that amendment at a later date.
Well, if you prefer, Madam Chair, to do that vote tonight, I'd be okay with that. But if you want to move things along, I'd be prepared to assist you moving things along. So it's your call.
I'm looking to see if my councilors would like to vote on that. Vote on this one? Yeah. Which way we go? Okay. Mayor, can I ask you to word it how you'd like it to be?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I could see it on the screen, if that would be helpful from Ms. Winter. Oh, sorry, the camera shots are kind of blocking some of the wording. I apologize on my laptop here. Hang on, I'm going to try and move the screen over. Oh, that's very helpful. Thank you. I would move to amend noise provisions so that excessive noises is not permitted between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And I will ask for the vote. Oh, sorry. Of course you can. Councilor Montgomery would like to speak to it.
Yeah, just very quickly. I'm not in favor of this. I agree with the recommendation there to identify a time between 11 and 7 takes the ability away from the officers. So that was where I come from, and also just acknowledge here that we don't have the staff from 11 to 7 on to be able to enforce it. So that's why I'll be voting against this motion.
Okay. Again, Councilor Miller, your name is here, but not for this motion. Okay. All right. Then I will ask council to vote on making the change to, oh, you want to speak to it?
Yeah, Madam Chair, sorry.
It's hard to know who's speaking to what. Go right ahead, Councilor Tessier.
Well, it seemed like it went to not voting to voting immediately. So, so this will be the change that'll be completed in that up. Like we're voting on this actual change to go from no times to strict times.
It's not the final bylaw. This is just the draft of the bylaw. So what will come back to us if we vote in favor of this change, we'll have the times in it. If we vote against it, the draft will come back without the changes. We still have another chance to vote on it at that point, the whole bylaw.
Yeah, okay. I go back and forth too for the reasons on, is it enforceable or not? If it's not enforceable, why put it in there? And we all know that it can't be enforced at certain times.
No, it can be, well, I shouldn't be answering on your behalf, but could you maybe answer that question? Can it be enforced?
Through Councilor Bernhardt to Councilor Tessier, can you rephrase your question? If it's
sorry, I guess
11 to 7, that means at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, there's nothing that we can do. Is that what you're asking?
No, I'm saying 2 a.m., 1 a.m., that type of thing. I guess it would be, you're able to come, but that would be like a non-emergency call in for someone coming from somewhere else, correct?
Normally at that time, it would be the RCMP that would be coming, and I guess they would have to determine on how important that call is compared to every other call they would have on that evening. So can't say they wouldn't come, and I can't say they will come. It depends. There's too many variables that would determine a 2 in the morning call on a Saturday morning. Our community peace officers don't work that late. So it wouldn't be ours unless we were doing something where we're doing a special event that the city's putting on, or some event that is going to draw a significant amount of public to our community. So.
Okay, thank you for that answer.
Would you like to speak to that, Councillor Miller?
Seeing as we're voting on this now, I feel I need to speak to this because I am not in favor of this. I don't know to elaborate. I just feel like why it sounds nice to put these numbers in there, 11 to 7, which I kind of already thought is like you've said, the unspoken, what everybody thinks anyway. But putting them in there, if we can't enforce them 100%, I don't see the point of putting them in there. So that's where I stand on that.
Thank you for that. And I'm just going to say I am voting in favor of it, and that is because I think the opposite is what I'm concerned about. More concerned about festivals and events that are happening before 11 o'clock being seen as being excessive noise and then being enforced at that point. So I think putting those hours in there is basically recognizing what's currently in play and reinforcing it and giving your officers that clearer direction. So I will be voting in favor of it. I don't see anyone else that is wanting to vote. Oh, you do? You want to ask another question? Go ahead,
Okay.
Councillor Tessier.
Just to confirm, is this any noise at all? Just, I'll take my area, for example, there's people roofing a house and it's past 11 because it's happened. If there's no time, what can you do? Because it's already happening, or they're working late with lights and all that. And that I get it, you want to finish the roof before whatever that may be, but it's 10:30, kids are sleeping. I'm for sure already in bed. So if I'm being woken up by that, then I'm just wondering, right now, I thought there was a time, right? Obviously. So is that under a different, not bylaw, but anything else that our municipal officers can use?
Through Madam Chair to Councillor Tessier. I believe it is currently in our noise bylaw, the 11 to 7. So obviously our officers can go out and enforce. The construction issue within the city is very complex for sure. Understanding that there is going to be construction noise from a heavily constructed neighborhood, especially ones that's going through several phases, and it's just not building 5 homes and then they're going off to another area. It's a continuation on that subdivision, especially over where you live. It's that construction noise is going to continue for the foreseeable future as new homes are being built and heavy equipment moves back and forth. Obviously, we like to try to keep everything when it comes to noise respectful for not only the residents, but also the buildings. We have spoken to several builders about just general noise in the area, and just, reminding that this is a residential area and you still need to abide by that. Right now, the 11 to 7 can be enforced, but at the end of the day, if there's anything that is causing us concerns that we can't handle, we can definitely bring in the RCMP once again, depending on what their availability is when it comes to that. And noise is a very subjective, and this is where lies the problem on what could be noisy for yourself, could be different for somebody else, especially if somebody's a shift worker and does a night shift and wants to sleep in the daytime. They may find it more noisier than somebody who works in the daytime and sleeps at night. So it's really trying to respond to the residents and work with them and give them as much information as possible. But at the end of the day, allow the bylaw officer or the community peace officer to at least be able to enforce something, or just provide them with some information on, hey, try to keep the noise down, be a good neighbor. That's the ultimate goal. And I think we just need to get that message out there and get our community peace officers out there talking to the public and to people that visit our city to, at the end of the day, be a good neighbor.
Yeah, thanks for that, Chief. And, you know, personally, I haven't had a whole bunch of issues with noises, but a couple of colleagues of mine have, you know, they live in duplexes and one person plays the drums all the time and those complaints he gets coming in. So I don't know where I sit with it. I don't know if there's no time at all, then we really can't do anything about it unless it goes to a drastic point. And right now we have those times in. So when we call and complain, it's like, well, you have to shut it down at 11. It's in the bylaw. If it's not there, are we saying that technically they can work till 1 a.m. on the roof? Because it's not any legal issue. So that would be a yes. So for me, I'd be in favor of just keeping the times for now, because if not, there's nothing we can back ourselves on as a neighbor, I guess. But I understand that we can't enforce it all that much depending on staffing levels, but I'll leave it at that for now. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tizzy. And I'll go to Mayor Danlock in a minute, but did I hear you say that the noise bylaw already has?
I
these
believe our
hours?
current noise bylaw has 11 to 7 time frame in there. So
Would this trigger a change? In
well,
that?
obviously the noise bylaw will be rescinded once the community standards bylaw comes into effect.
Okay, that stops being.
If at the end of the day, council's wishes is to stay with the 11 to 7, then we stay with the 11 to 7. And then we pull the data like we would on every other item that's in there and bring it back to council at that review. Or earlier, if we notice a significant issue in the public, nothing stopping us to bring it back and say, listen, we've got to address this because we've received 1,000 calls over 3 days over this, whatever it is. So,
Chief, I want to go to Mayor Danlock. He's been patient. His hand has been up.
No.
Mayor?
That's fine, Madam Chair. Thank you. Before I call for the vote, one last quick comment. It was mentioned earlier that they can't be enforceable. Well, it may not be enforceable after 11 o'clock by municipal personnel, but it would be enforced by the RCMP. So it would be enforced either way. The question is, at what time does the need for enforcement begin? And I'm okay at 11 to 7 a.m. So I will cede the floor to the vote when you call it, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okey doke. Not seeing any other questions. I will call for the vote, and we are voting to leave it as the second one. Provide revisions that state excessive noise in residential areas shall not occur after 11 p.m. and before 7 a.m. And I'll start the vote. Mayor Danlock, your vote?
Sorry, I did my green check mark. Do you prefer a show of hands?
I can see it. It's very small on my screen.
Oh, sorry. Then a show of hands for yes, sorry.
Councillor Van Nieuwkerk,
In favor.
in favor? Okay.
I'm in favor.
So that is then passed with five in favor, 6. I've lost count. Both of them said 2, right? So it's unanimous? 5-2. Okay, sorry about that. It was hard to keep track of all of that going at the same time. So the vote has passed with 5, and the 2 opposed would be, that's not showing on my screen.
It's Councillor
Councillor Miller and Councillor Monkoff-Swain. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. Phew, that was a tough one. We're not even finished the bylaw yet. So here we go. Are there any other questions? Councillor Miller, yes, you had another comment about something different, right?
Yes,
Thank
this
you.
is about the cannabis, section 64. So I'm a little confused about the add-in provisions that will control security. And then it goes on to say the proposed additions would not add to the mitigation of odors and smells, since they would relate to security and access to the property. So can you just clarify to me what that means, I guess?
Through Madam Chair to Councillor Miller, the cannabis issue is obviously a very fluid and challenging piece. We did talk to our legal counsel after the questions were raised when it comes to cannabis and what can be provided. Obviously, the infringement is the issue on somebody's rights to grow it. And that's why we're saying that if we can address it in the land use bylaw so that they could possibly have provisions in there when it comes to ventilation or proper filters or whatever it may be, that would probably be the best place for it from a land use perspective, rather than in a community standards bylaw. It just seems to be better used as the land use bylaw. I would say it probably has a little bit more teeth in it as somebody's developing a house, and if they're putting in that they need a permit for this purpose, then there would be certain checks and balances that the municipality could impose that would be able to provide possibly mitigate the concern from the public when it comes to that. But once again, that's a very fluid situation and changes by the hour and by the day, depending on who you talk to, for sure. So it's not a, unfortunately, it's not the, I don't have the absolute answer. This is what we're going to do. We're pretty confident that it should be addressed in the land use bylaw.
Okay. And that's just the clarification I was looking for, because it is pretty hard to understand the direction we're going. In the end point, just a municipality cannot legally impose restrictions or restrictions that completely prevent an individual from doing what the federal government has permitted them to do. So, then it goes back to how it's laid out on the website as well, that the municipality does have, you see what I mean, how it's vague. But if you are saying that the land use bylaw is a better bylaw to have that in there, that makes sense. And at this point, I just wanted clarification on the direction it's going. So thank you.
And just, we're not saying that your concern is not warranted for sure. All I'm saying is that it's probably better addressed in the land use bylaw. When the land use bylaw comes back, there may be some recommendations in there to kind of address it from a development standpoint prior to something being built or when it comes to that. But the experts in that field would bring that information forward.
Okay. And sorry, one more question. At that point, when the land use bylaw comes back, will we have feedback on, say, what other municipalities may have done to their land use bylaw to put restrictions in place for, ventilation systems and or something like that?
If I could interrupt, I apologize, but I see the administration would like to speak to that process.
No, thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor, and to Councillor Miller. We do have a separate recommendation to bring back a report, and that's exactly the type of information we would be bringing. It is a really complex issue, and I'm going to be totally honest here. We are struggling with it. There are limited things we could do in the community standards bylaw, as well as in the land use bylaw, in terms of impeding somebody's ability to exercise a federal license. So we would have to look to other municipalities, see what options are available, see what safeguards we could put in place. It seems to us that our best bet is to look for safeguards that could be introduced under the land use umbrella rather than the community standards. But it is a challenging situation. And we saw at the Alberta Municipalities Association, they did pass a resolution related to this matter and advocating to the federal government as part of the review that's going to be undertaken. So this is a bigger, more complex, hairy issue. But we do appreciate from administration's perspective the genuine concern that this causes municipalities, and our municipality is certainly not the only one.
And thank you for that, Sandy. And that's just it. Like the issue that I'm, for everybody that's hearing and watching is that it's not about, limiting somebody to exercise their federal right to grow cannabis. It's the impact, and the noxious odor that it emits onto the neighbors. And that's strictly what I'm trying to control. So leave it at that.
Thank you for that. Ms. Dargy, did you have something else you wanted to add? I know you're late. Was that your answer? Okay. Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Miller. Is there anything else?
Nope, that is all.
Okay. Then No other items. No one else is showing up as, oh, yes, there is. Councillor Van Newkirk, thank you for spotting that. I saw it and then I forgot you were there. Go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I'll have my day at there sometime, Kathy, and I'll be trying to spot everything too. So I appreciate it's tough. So I'm listening to the consumption piece and the cannabis piece here, and the concerns that are coming up in our community are nuisance odor concerns. And from what I'm understanding from administration is we can, those folks that are anticipating needing increased this or that in their permit to build or something, that maybe there's a mechanism there to do something. Sure. What is the risk to the municipality of putting something in this bylaw that says you cannot disturb your neighbors with a nuisance odor from your pot growing in your house? What's precluding us from doing that right now? I guess question for administration.
Mr. J. Oh, Mr. Argy. I think I'm shutting you off. There we go.
Okay. So thank you for that question. So we've had discussions with external legal counsel on this, some extensive discussions with them, because as Ms. Jaya indicated, many municipalities are struggling with this, and it isn't just as easy as saying you can't have odor disturbing your neighbors, because first of all, that's going to be very subjective. It needs to be measured in some way. And so when we've talked to legal counsel on what we can put in for measures, what we have currently in the bylaw does address odors. What we are adding in are, or suggesting that we add in, are provisions that control security and access, which do nothing for the odor, but that's why we stress that in the information we brought back to you, because the controls that we already have proposed are pretty much as strict as we can go based on our discussions with legal counsel. This is a broader issue, as has been mentioned. The disconnect between what the federal government is saying on their website and what municipalities can actually do is huge, and it's causing, pardon me, it's causing a lot of problems for municipalities across the country. So it's not just a Beaumont problem, it's a problem across many municipalities. And until something gets tested in the courts, this is really what we've been recommended from external legal counsel on how we can address this.
Thank you very much, Scargy.
May
Yes,
I
Member
just
Jay?
add, in terms of Councillor Van Newkirk's question about what's the risk is a charter challenge, essentially invalidating that provision of the bylaw. And that doesn't maybe seem like the worst thing, but it's a very expensive process, and it's very timely, and it's damaging to the municipality's reputation. So that's the worst case scenario when we're dealing with those, when we're grappling with those issues as to what is the right level of detail, and how far can we go in terms of regulating those provisions. That's our challenge.
Thank you. Councillor Van Newkirk, did you have anything further on that?
Yeah, you bet. Right now we have residents sitting on the side of streets staking out houses. We have residents that are keeping logs of when odors come. We have residents looking to other people in the community to come and observe and potentially do something. I don't know what that do something is, knock on a door or what, because they don't feel comfortable. There's a neighborhood in the community where I go knock on the door and talk to people and ask them how they're doing, how's their summer going, and they say it's all good except for the dope house. So, what I'm bringing forward here is that, I hear all the risks, but I don't know how we can show residents that we're doing something about this. Because are we using all the tools at our disposal? I think we are, and I think we hear that. But at the same time, we need to show some action to the residents. And what is that? What does that mean? I understand the risk, the reputational risk and all of those things, but yeah, I guess I'll have another go at this, think about it some more and have another go at this when it comes back. That's kind of what I have to say for tonight. It doesn't feel to me like we're doing everything we can and should for the residents that are having to put up with this stuff. So that's where my head's at right now.
I appreciate that position. I share your concern. What my understanding is that this is coming back to us in the second quarter of 2023, the report, which will be, it's a complex report. It's very difficult to get all of the laws lined up in all of the different jurisdictions. So I appreciate that this is something that the administration is working very diligently on. So for sure, it will be back to council so the residents know we are dealing with it. It's just not a simple matter to deal with by any means. I don't see any other requests to speak, right? Double checking every which way I'm looking. So we have 3 recommendations in front of us. So the suggestion would be that one member of council, if they're willing to make those recommendations, can do it all as one motion. Is there anything different than that, Ms. Bajay? I'm looking at you to see if I got that right. The 3 motions can be made as one, the 3 recommendations. Ms. Winter?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Barnhart. Yeah, we can definitely do that.
Okay. Then is there a member of council willing to make that motion? Councillor Bunkoff-Swain, you have the floor.
No one wanted to read that large.
Yes, I do. That's
Text.
why nobody wanted to press the button.
It's a bit removed from Councillor Tessier there. He was trying, but I will move that the following changes to the draft community standards bylaw be made prior to the bylaw or returning to council for consideration. 1, amend section 23B8 to refer to automated fluids generally. I'm quite impressed I got that. Amend the fines related to the construction waste so that they are double the current specified amount. Remove section 66, consumption of cannabis in its entirely. Remove section 43A, automotive repairs in a garage in its entirely. Include a provision for mandatory reviews of the bylaw 2 years after the 3rd reading, and add provisions related to security and access related to cannabis. And 2, that by the end of the second quarter of 2023, administration prepare a report on options for amending the land use bylaw to provide more options for mitigating nuisance related to medical cannabis growing. And 3, that by the end of the first quarter of 2023, administration prepare a report on options for establishing a pilot program to allow for the consumption of alcohol in city park spaces.
Thank you very much. That was a lot to read. Appreciate that. Is there any members of council wish to comment on the motion that's on the floor?
No.
Everything's good. So then I will call for the vote. Please vote.
In favor?
Thank you, Councillor and Mayor. I couldn't tell if that
In
was
favor.
Councillor Van Newkirk.
In favor.
Your voices do sound alike. So both of you are in favor. So that passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay. There's a lot there. You have to leave. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, number 7 is passed. So we're moving on to item 8. Councillor inquiries. And we have responses and reports as well in this item. We don't generally discuss them unless there's a question, member of council, or a comment. Are there any other councillor inquiries, responses, or reports? Not seeing any? No? Councillor Tessier, do you have one? Inquiries, not notice of motion, inquiries. I see one on the screen, so I think it is you, Councillor Tessier. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, my inquiry is please provide information on how decisions on lighting for walkways are negotiated and funded for new developments in the city. Example, how does the city determine what is required for lighting for walkways and where lights are added to walkways, as well as how are the costs to build and maintain that infrastructure shared between developers in the city? Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Tessier. I don't see any others. No other hands are up. So then we will move to the next item on the agenda, which is the CAO update. Mr. Schwartz.
Yes, thank you very much. Through Madam Chair, the rest of the council, members of the public, I have a few items. Last Thursday evening, council went through some public hearing training with Gwendolyn Stewart Palmer, which I thought was I know I got a lot out of it. I learned the word no was an important word. So congratulate council for putting that time and dedication into doing that. Stacy is going to run a picture up for us. I wanted to show you the current fitness equipment that is just about ready. We're just waiting for a little bit of engineered wood fiber, and then that will be completed. And that's in Four Seasons Park, just to the west of the parking lot. So that's the, what do they call that, Sport Trek or something? There's an official name for it, and unfortunately it's gone from me. So we're looking forward to that, to add to our community. New cabinet will be announced October 21st, provincial government. This week is Fire Prevention Week, and you're invited to a barbecue by the Beaumont Fire Services, and that is at the Fire Hall on Wednesday, this October 15th from 11 till 2 p.m. Not sure if Sparky will make an appearance. Saturday. Did I say Sunday? I said, okay, Saturday. I meant Saturday, 11 to 2, and that barbecue is free. You can meet your local firefighters, tour the fire trucks, drive a fire truck. Is that correct? That's what I'm reading. Thank you. Also, this year, we're returning to our first in-person Remembrance Day celebration. So more information will come out, but we invite all members of the public to attend the ceremony, which will begin at 10:45 on Friday, November 11th at the Beaumont Community Center. But again, we'll have some information. There is some information out on the website already and on the events page, and there will be more information coming. A reminder to residents that beginning tomorrow and until October 14th, there will be no parking on 50th Street. That's to facilitate some water service abandonment work. So we want to thank everybody in advance for their patience. And speaking of patience, I'd also like to extend a thank you to the residents adjacent to Belleville School and the Bellevue outdoor rink. If you recall, last week we had to go, speaking of our noise bylaw, we had to go late into the evening due to cooler weather to help cure the pad. And that was done with no complaints from anybody. And we appreciate your patience and apologize for the inconvenience. And those were the items that I had. So thank you very much.
Thank you, CAO Schwartz. Are there any other questions for CAO? Not seeing any. All right, thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is notices of motion. Are there any notices of motion tonight? My head has to keep moving all the way around to see everybody. No notices of motion. Thank you very much. And then we are now moving into closed session, and I would ask a member of council to make a motion that we go into closed session as per the motion that's written on the screen right now. Councillor Miller.
Sure, I move that council move into closed session pursuant to the Freedom Information and Protection of Privacy Act sections 21 and 24.
Thank you very much. And I would ask that councillors vote on that motion.
Mayor Daniluk in favor.
Thank you. Councillor Van Nuken
In favor.
in favor. So that is unanimous. We have Councillor Monkoff-Swain has left, but it's unanimous vote. Thank you.